what a buck.
Hey guys, Todd Helms with Eastmans Hunting Journals, and I'm here to bring you a little DIY jerky review, if you will, of some of my favorite Hi Mountain Seasonings products. We've got the Big Shot jerky and sausage gun here that I'm going to be using to make this jerky, and my two favorite jerky flavors from Hi Mountain, the original and the sweet and spicy kits. The DIY jerky kits from Hi Mountain are about the easiest that you could imagine to make your own jerky, and they taste phenomenal. The jerky that you make from this stuff, if you follow the directions to the letter, it's all included in the box. It's super easy to do. You can make it right in your home kitchen like this one, in your oven or on a smoker or whatever, however you want to do it. The point is it's easy and it's delicious, and it is a great way to turn all that hunting bounty that you have in your freezer into ready to eat snacks for friends and family. So normally I make whole muscle jerky. I use the kit, the cutting board that we've featured in a previous video for wingmen on how to slice, use that knife to slice and make whole muscle jerky out of large pieces of meat. This time I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I have a bunch of leftover venison grind, or hamburger if you will, from last year that I shouldn't say a bunch, I have some, and I want to get it used up because I need space in my freezer for what's coming up very shortly for me and my hunting season. So I'm going to make about 6 pounds of jerky just to kind of show you how to do it out of ground venison. It happens to be mule deer. I know the flavors are going to be great. We've used the gun to make snack sticks and other things in the past, but I've never used it for jerky. So I'm going to give that a try following the very, very explicit directions from Hi Mountain. All right, so this is what we've got. We've got ground up mule deer, and this is from last season, just a little bit that's left. Try to rinse away some blood, and then we'll get the process started. We're going to make 2 different kinds, 2 different batches. Get my little scale out and I'll tare my bowl and make sure I get the right weights, because when it comes to making DIY jerky with the Hi Mountain kits, your weight of your meat needs to be pretty exact, because that's going to dictate how much cure and how much spice you end up using. All right, so I have everything out that I need. I've got my meat unpackaged and weighed. I took 6 packages of meat out. I have about 7.5 pounds of meat total that I've weighed. We're gonna split that roughly in half. I'm gonna put half in this bowl, half in this bowl, and we will weigh each one. That will determine how much seasoning and how much cure we need from our 2 mixes. The reason I'm splitting it in half is I'm gonna make 1 of each. So here we go. And I know that a big handful of meat like that for me is about 1 pound roughly, because I do a lot of home processing. And this is not what you would call traditional hamburger. It doesn't have any fat mixed into it. This is just ground venison is all this is. It happens to be mule deer, but there's no fat in it. And you might want to do that if you're considering making jerky out of ground meat. You might want to nix the fat. It has a tendency to make your jerky a little bit greasy. I think so anyway, and I like it. Like I said, the stuff that I've had, I've never made this before out of ground. I've never made jerky myself out of ground meat, but the stuff that I have eaten, it just seems like it's better when it's just ground meat and no fat in it. So that's what we've got. I'm pretty close. I'm gonna go 1 more and I'm gonna weigh. Should be 3.75. That's 4 pounds right on the nose. So I'm really close. I'll take out, and do it again. I want you to see that, what I just did there. Read that scale. I just eyeballed that, grabbed 1 more little pinch, threw it in the bowl, and I am almost exactly at the weight that I need to be on. That's super impressive. All right, so we can get rid of the scale now. Set that back over here. Probably rinse that off later. One of the things that I know from having done jerky with these Hi Mountain seasoning kits in the past is that you can't mix in metal. You have to mix and store your meat overnight. Once I get this all mixed up, it's gonna sit overnight. It has to be either in plastic or glass. Metal, no bueno. It reacts with the cure in the kits and it'll ruin your product. You can't do it. It says that in the directions. Follow these directions to the letter. You're gonna be pretty happy. So I think we'll do like this. One of each. I know I've got about the same amount of meat. So now it's time for Todd to start doing some math. I'm gonna do the sweet and spicy first, so I'm just gonna slide this stuff out of the way a little bit so I have some more room to work. These are unopened kits. If you'll notice, you have a bag of seasoning and a bag of cure. The cure comes in a little Ziploc pouch because you're never gonna use as much cure as you do seasoning. That's kind of what I have discovered using these kits and making my own jerky for years. Like I said, never done the ground meat, so we're gonna give that a whirl. Got the shaker bottle that we always have. That's an important one, and probably the most important is the directions. This is literally about as foolproof as it gets right here. You got directions for making whole muscle jerky. You got directions for making ground meat jerky. We're making ground meat jerky, so I'm just gonna fold this over. And we're gonna take a look at what I need here. All right, so pounds of meat. 2 pounds says 3 pounds, 2 tablespoons and 1.5 tablespoons of the seasoning, and then 2 tablespoons of cure. And so I have 3.75 pounds. So this is my dilemma. Do I round up and go to 4? Or do I eyeball it with my measurements and stick with 3? I'd rather have a little bit more seasoning in my jerky than less. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with the 4-pound dose or recipe. Pretty simple. We'll mix it all in the bowl. Let's do the seasoning and the cure. And a trick for you with this, what I like to do is I like to put my ingredients, my cure and my spices in a measuring cup and then pour that measuring cup into the shaker. It's way easier than trying to mess with teaspoons and tablespoons and put it all in the shaker and you get stuff all over the place. So that's how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna measure it out into this, put it in here, and then we'll season everything. So here's my measuring spoons. And I said I was gonna go 3 tablespoons and 1/2 teaspoon. So there's 1 tablespoon. There's 2 tablespoons. I need 1 more tablespoon. There's that, and I'm gonna go with 1/2 teaspoon because it calls for 1, and I don't have quite 3/4. And those weren't level, obviously, so I'm probably gonna be just about right for seasoning. So that's the seasoning. All right, time for the cure. And this comes in a little Ziploc baggie. Like I said, you never go use quite as much cure as you do seasoning, at least in my experience. So this is gonna open up and we're going to measure out 2 tablespoons and 1 teaspoon of the cure. There's 1 more. Make that pretty level. This is more granulated, kind of like salt, so it's a little easier to get good exact measurements. There's 1/2 right there. So there's 1/2 and there's 1 total. Now, and I just stir it up and I mix it together. It's gonna be way easier to apply when you do this. Now, I'm just gonna use my spoon and I'm gonna shake it on my meat like that. This is where the gloves come in real handy because this stuff gets in any cracks or under a cuticle or something and it stings. So I'm gonna start mixing. This is kind of similar to making sausage. It's gonna call for ice water. And it's calling for 1/4 cup of ice water per pound of meat. And then I knead it all together for about 5 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start adding a little bit of ice water, cold, because of where we live, our water's really cold this time of year. So I'm just gonna get some tap water. What that does is it helps bind everything. It helps make sure that your seasonings and cure get evenly distributed throughout that meat. And it's gonna just help bind it and set it up. and help that meat cure as I leave it in the fridge overnight. So that water's good and cold. I'll pour a little bit in. It's calling for a 1/4 cup per pound of meat. I'm probably pretty close to what I need right there. Once I start mixing this together, it's gonna start binding and mixing with that meat. You can see it's like it's soaking it up, kind of like a sponge. I'm gonna add the rest of my seasoning. And all I'm gonna do, take my trusty tablespoon and sprinkle it around the meat. Guys, this is really easy. Really simple, really straightforward, really simple process that every time I've done it in the past with whole muscle meat has never failed to turn out. So I'm gonna mix this up, knead it in really good, and I'm gonna see if it needs a little more water. I bet it's not going to. You can start to smell it. It's starting to smell pretty good. We have to let this stuff sit overnight in this bowl before we put it into that gun tomorrow and shoot it out into strips onto a grate and put it on the smoker. All right, guys. So that is my sweet and spicy batch right there. This has to go sit overnight, 24 hours. We're ready. This is ready to go. I'm gonna cover it with plastic wrap and we are going to let it sit overnight, and tomorrow we'll shoot it out of that awesome big shot jerky and sausage gun right here. This is gonna be fun. So we'll see you in the morning. All right, guys, so it's been right around 24 hours since we put the jerky in the bowl within the cure, and it's time to put it in the jerky gun and squirt it onto my baking racks. Now, you can do this in your oven, you can do it on a smoker, you can put it in a dehydrator, however you want to make the jerky is up to you. I really like the smoker, the pellet grill, works really well. Set on the lowest setting on smoke, about 180 degrees. I'm gonna do it for about 2 hours and I'm gonna check it. You can do the whole thing in the oven, that works really well too, but I really like the smoker. And so I've got my racks. So on your racks, you wanna make sure that your spacing is tight. These are like 1/4 inch spaces. This stuff is pretty well set up. It should squirt right out, and I'm just gonna put it all on here and we're gonna transfer that to the smoker. Look at this thing. Whoa, super cool. I've used it before to make snacking sticks, and it works really cool. It's really easy to use that way. You just pull it out like that, and you can load it from either end. I'm gonna put my nozzle on first. This is my jerky nozzle. Try not to set that down too hard. Comes with a couple different nozzles, but this is the one for the jerky. It's got a flat end, and all it does, this goes over the top like that, and it screws on the end. It's kind of like a caulk gun, real similar. But I do want to make sure that that thing's pretty flat on there. It's just going to make squirting out my jerky easier like this if it's flat. Now, it comes apart here like this, and we load our jerky in that tube. And it works best to load your jerky to make like, little torpedoes or little balls and stick them in there. So that's how we're gonna do that. This jerky has sat in the refrigerator overnight. It's cured. I just lifted up the saran wrap or the plastic wrap on it, and it smells great. So, time to start making jerky. We're just gonna, this is like pasty, and we just make little balls, and we stick them in there like that. If you've got little hands at home, little kids, this is a fun part of the process. They can help you make this. If they want to make little meatballs, it goes a lot faster when you have lots of little hands. I know when we do this stuff, I try to get my kids involved as much as possible whenever we're processing game, whether it's making jerky or grinding burger or cutting up animals, we try to get the kids involved as much as I possibly can. That way they get a hands-on feel for what this is all about as well. So there, we've got that. I'm gonna pack that down a little bit. I'm gonna screw that on. So I'm gonna depress this. I'm gonna push that down. It's about half full. Move this and start putting it on. You wanna get it on there just like that. And I'm gonna squeeze nice and easy and just lay it out. I'm just about like that. There's one. I'm not squeezing really fast like this. I'm just nice gentle squeezes and it comes right out. It's almost more, for you folks that have done some baking, it's almost more like squeezing out frosting or icing than it is anything else. This thing works really good for this. Again, break it off at the end. And I have a feeling that this is gonna dry out really quickly on the smoker. Like I said, we're gonna give it about 2 hours. The nice thing about this, the ground meat jerky, is that you can make it drier, leave it on there, get it drier, and it doesn't get as tough because it's all ground up. It doesn't get as tough as whole muscle jerky. If you're making jerky and you're trying to do this by any other method, I would highly suggest that you take a look at this Big Shot jerky and sausage gun from Hi Mountain. As is with everything Hi Mountain, these guys think it through, and man, they make stuff as easy to use as possible. Wow, this is slick. But I made a lot of jerky, so I'm gonna end up covering this up pretty good. And I'm at the end right there. So it's time for more. I'm gonna slide that up and I'm gonna reload the gun. Yeah, it's like one little squeeze and that stuff comes right out. Remember when we made the snack sticks? It was a little bit more work than this. Here we go. Here we go. I'm just going to screw this back in place. And we're going to rock and roll. Again, this works really simple. You don't have to squeeze near as hard as you think you do. It's going to get some air out. Starts to tighten up and it'll come right out. There it is. Okay, there's tray 2. We're gonna do 3 trays. All right, so that's our 3 trays. I still have about probably 1.5 pounds of jerky meat left. Jerky's a lot of prep and a lot of just kind of waiting, but man, the process is simple. It's easy to do. This Big Shot jerky and sausage gun from Hi Mountain makes things really easy. This was very simple to do. And making the jerky itself is a really simple process as well. I just followed the directions in the jerky kits to the letter. Again, I have quite a bit of experience using Hi Mountain's products, and so I kind of know some cheats here and there. But for the most part, this was easy. This was simple, and we're gonna go get it on the smoker. I've got it started. It should be up to temp, and we're gonna go rock and roll. All right, here we go. I'm gonna go get the other trays and we're gonna put them on there. Should be good to go. I think they're gonna all 3 fit. If I lift it up and slide it completely over to the side, I think we're gonna get all 3 trays on there. We'll see. Fingers crossed. And now we wait. It's gonna be about 2 hours. I'm gonna check it at 1.5 hours. I'm gonna keep adding more, but we've got the idea. Then I'm gonna just rotate through the rest of what I have, and just by the end of the day, I'll have a whole bunch of jerky made, and then it'll be time to vacuum seal it, throw it in the freezer, and enjoy it throughout the entire holiday season. Well, guys, that's a wrap for this gear review of Hi Mountain Seasonings DIY jerky kits. Again, I'd never made ground meat jerky before. It's a really simple process. You just follow the directions that are in the box, and it turns out like this. This is 3.75 pounds, so 3 3/4 pounds. And each one of these boxes will do 15 pounds of meat. So if you've got a bunch of meat left over or meat coming into this time of year, a lot of seasons are just getting going in the Midwest or back east or down south. Out here in the West, we're wrapping things up, looking at some late seasons. So we've got meat in the freezer, maybe some left over, but the holidays are an awesome time to make up a bunch of DIY jerky, and it's super easy and it'll go fast. You throw some of this on a plate, maybe a charcuterie board, and it'll disappear. You'll be amazed. So guys, that is my review, the Eastmans Hunting Journal's review of Hi Mountain Seasonings DIY jerky kits and Big Shot jerky and sausage gun. Hey guys, while I got you here, drop down, punch that subscribe button, leave us a comment, make sure you turn on your notifications so you get notified every time we drop delicious content like this. And make sure you check us out on all of our social media feeds, Instagram, Facebook, and check out all of our podcasts. I think we're up to 6 podcasts now in the Eastmans podcast suite. And leave us your questions. We'll give you a shout out. We'll answer those questions on the podcast. You can find those anywhere you get your podcast. Until next time, guys, we'll see you in the field.